This is a part of a series of lunch and learn, but this morning we're going to rebrand this for a brunch and learn. 10 a.m. in Pacific Standard Time and 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. We're going to talk about storage today, different trends, different solutions in what's going on in the world of storage. And hopefully you get some value out of this conversation. We want to make this interactive, so put your questions in the chat as they come up, and we will find out the right moment in the conversation on when to stop and ask some questions. And at the end, we're going to allow for some good time for the questions towards the end. I'm supported today by a couple of really nice individuals from our partnership with Dell. I'm supported today by Desmond Cooper. He's a senior solution consultant at Dell Technologies, and partner business manager Rob Spicer that takes care of Microserve in all of the different partner programs, training. Our platinum status with Dell continues to grow in supporting our customers with their IT needs. Good morning, Desmond, and good morning, Rob.
Good morning. Thank you for hosting this, Sil and team. And thank you everybody for joining us today. It'll be an informative session for you.
Awesome. So the agenda today, we're going to be doing a little bit of introduction on my side in terms of Microserve and where the partnership with Dell fits. We're going to talk about some of the challenges out there in the marketplace, what customers are facing, different trends in direction, and what's going on in the world of storage. And we're going to talk about solutions and keeping it very simple in terms of agenda with a Q&A towards the end. This is the slide that I like the most in the Microserve deck. So we always remind everybody of the entire Microserve services portfolio, from IT procurement to managed services, data center solution, audiovisual, IT security, backup and disaster recovery. And if you think about all of those components, there's storage involved in pretty much many of them, if not all of them. Customers need to deal with storage solutions across the entire services portfolio of Microserve. So we serve our clients in every one of those aspects, and we're continuing to grow in the marketplace and innovate in these solutions to our clients. So with that, we'll turn it over to Desmond to talk about the subject of the day, which is about power storage.
Appreciate that. Well, good morning, good day, folks. As Lynn mentioned, we're really glad that you're able to spend some time with us this morning. So, we're going to take you through one of our platforms with PowerStore experience. I'll do a little bit of an intro myself right now. My name is Desmond Cooper. I do go by Des. I'm a member of the Storage Platforms and Solutions group. So we really focus on converged infrastructure like VxBlock, hyperconverged with VxRail, PowerFlex, and then of course a lot of our enterprise storage and mid-range storage with PowerMax, PowerStore, and Unity, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where we fall into. That's where our expertise is, my team, and we all kind of have our niches within that platform. So. And of course, I've been around for a long time. I won't date myself. You can tell by the gray. And where's my buttons? All right. So for the agenda, I think there might be a few of you out there that may not have seen PowerStore. So we'll just do an overview of that. And then we'll kind of get into the PowerStore enhancements that's been released late last year, and just have a general discussion as well. And again, questions. Please post them in chat. My peer, Mark Perry, will be watching the chat as well. And if we can have some questions and answers during that, that's great. There'll be some time left over for Q&A at the end. So with that, I hope everyone is comfortable. You have your drink or, a few snacks ready, and we can get started. So, it comes to no surprise that, we're experiencing a period of unprecedented change, both in business, and technology landscapes. We're in the data era, and, there's all of us are creating more data, and it's really important for us to understand what are we going to do with that, and how are we going to leverage that data in the future, right? So here's some numbers of IDC, that talk towards the growth. So a compound annual growth rate over the next 5 years is 25%. This is an average, but this probably will fluctuate. And these numbers are a little old, but they're still relevant. And when we start looking at data crossing cloud, we start looking at data in the edge. It really comes apparent that we need to understand how are we going to transform and modernize, our approach as we move forward. There's going to be, a high volume of people, and 50%, it says here, over 50% going to be deploying new infrastructure at the edge. So it's, becomes very apparent that we need to find solutions that help us, not only reduce costs, but operationally is more efficient. And then, we're all very familiar with traditional platforms. We've been using it for many, many years. There are some boundaries around what happens and why, it stops us from being able to progress and modernize, right? So there's some business disadvantages when we think about traditional platforms, and what that means when we remain on that, right? So there is business disruption, which I'm sure a number of you have seen in the past. Forklift upgrades, costs. There's a lot of risk within the environment. Applications need to stay up, and these are things that we're trying to resolve. Of course, from a lifespan perspective, a lot of the traditional architecture before, we have a 3, maybe 5 year lifespan. But now, with spinning drives and whatnot, but now that we're looking at newer technologies, new modern ways, we're trying to understand, can we get, maybe 7, 10 years out of that? That's still up for debate, and when is the right time? So when we think about, how do we become modern and, transform, we need to be able to adapt to the future. Anything that comes up, from a business initiative, new applications, maybe DevOps, we need to make change easy as well, right? As we use or find the right solution. And of course, that solution needs to be innovative, right? Be able easily to adopt new technology, new applications, and whatnot. So with that, I'm going to introduce you to the PowerStore experience. Now, PowerStore was released a couple in 2020, and we refer to it as continuously modern storage, and I'll get into that and tell you why we think that. And then, of course, you see anytime upgrade advantage here. This is a new feature that's was released with PowerStore in 2020 as well. So I'll pause for a moment there. Any questions so far, or Mark, do you see anything in chat?
Monitoring the chat, there's no questions at the moment.
Excellent. All right. So I just wanted to, display some recognition. As I mentioned, PowerStore was deployed or released in 2020. Through that, we've received a number of recognitions and accolades, that we're very proud of. PowerStore is our, fastest ramping technology in Dell history. And we've had some really good feedback in that time. So, when we think about this, back in 2017, maybe even earlier, our chief engineering and his engineering team were mandated to, we need to come up with a new approach. And this is where PowerStore is released, right? We need to be able to adapt to, have adaptable architecture. We need to be able to, have intelligence and make it easy, right? And then we also need to be able to modernize in place. And we'll touch on each one of these. So from an adaptability standpoint, we need to be able to, as business change and as we try to modernize, we don't always know what the future holds, right? So we need something that's going to be able to provide that, performance, but yet scale up and scale out. On the back end, have some self-configuring services that take some of the guesswork out of it for a lot of the operational staff, and then be able to move data. So we need that application mobility as well, and then have that support, whether it's in a core data center, whether it's edge. If you need to do metro, and metro is referring to asynchronous replication between two sites, and then of course cloud, and where cloud wants to integrate. From an intelligent piece, we're always looking for a platform that is leveraging new technology. And if we can, find a technology to help us transform that's able to leverage AI, leverage, machine learning, give us some really good intelligence in the background, help drive our business, that's what we're really trying to achieve. So when we look at a storage platform, we want data reduction, we want some load balancing, and then in this platform, there's dynamic resilient engine, and I'll touch on that a little later and explain what that it really is. Now, when we look at, moving to the next step, we always want some predictive analytics at the end of the day, something that helps us be a little bit more proactive. That term's been probably used, throughout my career, many years, is like, how do we become more proactive? We need something that's going to help us identify potential issues, or even just rectify it on its own before it even happens, right? So that's another capability of a platform that we really want to be able to leverage as we move forward. And then, I have conversations about automation almost every day, where a lot of customers are now needing to find a better way to, do things more efficiently, use automation and be able to connect into, their platforms. There's DevOps, so we want maybe Ansible and other tools out there. Maybe if you're a VMware shop, maybe VROps or other tools that you want to be able to connect in there and build out one cohesive environment. And then last but not least is modernize, right? So when we look at a platform, we don't want to have a platform where, we have to deal with software independently. We want to make sure that, what we choose these days has an all-encompassing software. You don't need to worry about missing something during that, procurement phase. And then, of course, we want to be able to, change out hardware and have no disruption as we progress, right? And maybe there's something in the future that comes out with a new generation that your business may need to take advantage of from maybe an application perspective where it requires a certain amount of performance. So we better look at using new generation. And what does that mean? Well, if that happens, then we need to be able to non-disruptively move things so it doesn't affect your business or application users. All right, so I did mention that, I wanted to touch on this as anytime upgrade. This is new to Dell. It really helps us with more of a greenfield capability, right? So as you grow. So with anytime upgrade, it is, you enroll it at point of sale, right? There's a few options here and what this helps us with. So we can use it to upgrade a node. And then we can use it to scale out, if you want to build a scale. And I'll touch on a lot of these in the upcoming slides. But I guess one of the benefits of doing anytime upgrade and entering at point of sale is it kind of gives you that your cost. You won't have to have another PO because it's kind of upfront. And then, in 2 years or 3 years within that contract period, you can upgrade to the next generation or scale out the environment. And that's kind of one of the biggest offerings that we've been able to add into our platforms. Now pause here for a moment and just see if there's any questions.
I'm monitoring the chat and there's no questions so far. Maybe there's somebody want to come off mute and ask a question.
Oh, okay.
Got a shy audience today.
Don't be shy. We're here to answer any questions you may have. So, all right. So let's just kind of keep going into the overview of PowerStore. And I'll get started. And let me just build this out here. Okay. So, starting at the bottom, we have, 2U platform. There's two controllers on the back, but those controllers are now rebranded as nodes. So we'll have node 1 and node 2, and throughout the presentation, you'll see me reference node 1 and node 2. And this is an active configuration. On the front of this is all NVMe flash, so very, very performant. And then, of course, when we look at a platform, and from what I mentioned earlier, we're trying to make sure we were able to accommodate not only traditional workloads, but modern ones as well, right? So the platform itself is completely unified. Unified meaning block and SMB, right? So we have all those different capabilities on there. From a new protocol, NVMe, over TCP and FC. And then, of course, when we look at traditional workloads, databases, absolutely, this platform is going to handle the requirement, performance, and I/O that a database might drive. But not only that, the modern workloads, we need to be able to, leverage our technology for containers, right? And as we build out let's start building out container environment and start using Kubernetes and or other container applications, we want that ability on any platform. And that's where we feel that, it's becoming very modern that way. And it helps us just to get a little deeper in the options of scale out and scale up and kind of go through an overview of PowerStore. As I mentioned on the last slide, there's two controllers. We refer to them as node 1 and node 2. And then up front is all the drives. So from a scale up point of view, we're looking at being able to scale up with multiple shelves, with depending on the data reduction ratio you can achieve, that could be up to 4.7 petabytes per appliance. And an appliance is what you see there in this box, right? So it is made up of the node 1, node 2, and the disks. So as we look forward and want to be able to scale out, we can build a storage cluster and add additional appliances. Now, you can see on the scale out side, we can add 4 appliances, which equates to 8 nodes in total, right? Nodes 1 and node 2, they're actually on one single box. And up to 8 nodes. And if we do ever see an environment up to 8 nodes, we have a tremendous amount of storage capabilities at that point, right? 18 plus petabytes. There's not too many people in Western Canada that have that are 18 petabytes, but the capability is there.
It demonstrates the ability to scale, right, Desmond?
Correct. Right. So the ability to scale, and I have a slide on right here too, right? So when we look at, even from a heterogeneous application side, and if we ever did have the requirement where we need to, build out a storage cluster for specific applications, Oracle, VMware, maybe there's, on the far right, ultra high performance with SCM drives, that can be done, right? And we can build this out and have that segregation. But one of the biggest features of building a cluster is having it autonomous and building this functionality with machine learning in the background, right? So I'm going to build this out, and if we have data in any appliance, we can be able to, machine learning will actually understand the characteristics of that data, and if it's better suited on appliance 1 where it has more performance, it will suggest to move it. Now that can be an automatic or that can be a manual approach, but that functionality is built in, right, where we can actually move data. This helps us with just non-disruptive migrations and being able to evergreen an environment as well, right? So it also helps reduce a lot of staff time with having to rebalance. So that's probably one of the bigger nice features of the latest release of the platform, PowerStore. Of course, with any platform, we need to be able to take advantage of deduplication and compression. So our platform here is 4-to-1 guaranteed on deducible data, right? And this is all in line. So all the data, when data hits the box, it's being deduped and compressed. Now on the compression side, I'm not too sure if anyone's familiar with Intel Quick Assist, but it helps us move the compression algorithm off to dedicated hardware, and that way it frees up I/O or CPU cycles to focus on servicing block and file data. So it's a really big differentiator when we look at the ultimate performance of inline deduplication and compression.
Des, you just might want to mention that there's no assessment required or anything for to get the to look at the data to get that guarantee. Good
point. That is correct, and thanks for bringing that up, Mark. There is no data assessment, right? We do have that's guaranteed out for any customer that is going to be purchasing a PowerStore. So, earlier when we started, we were talking about modernized, technology, and when it comes to this platform, we've adopted this as well. So the PowerStore OS is actually modular. It's actually a container-based OS that runs on top of the hardware. Now, this gives us a lot of value as we progress forward, and we'll touch on that as well here. Compared to traditional, there's many challenges with trying to update that OS. Could be an outage, could be affected. We've all been through that. With having modular containers, it helps us be able to update and supply capabilities and new features in a fairly quickly fashion, right? Because it's not touching. We can add a microservice into our PowerStore OS. Now, and when we start talking more about modernization, we're talking about an NVMe system here, NVMe drives, new technology. And on one of my earlier slides, I mentioned dynamic resilience engine. Now, I won't go too deep. That might be a better conversation, to get really deep into it if anybody wants to. But at the end of the day, when we look at NVMe, we also need to understand RAID protection on the background. If we look at a standard RAID, that was architected for old technology, spinning drives. And as we move forward, we need something that's going to be a bit more, able to help with reducing build times, for instance. Provide more flexibility, be able to drive more performance, right? So when we look at the new dynamic resilient engine, it also gives us the ability to increase the storage by one drive, right? As little as one drive. If we were to use traditional RAID, we wouldn't be able to do that. We'd always have to make sure we use the RAID set that was configured, right? So again, I won't go too deep. I do have one slide here that does kind of draw this out of what dynamic resilient engine is. And at the end of the day, we use all disks that are in the system. Data is in chunks, right, across all the drives. On the distributing sparing side, that gray little mark, if you can see it, that's all spare capacity, right? So we don't really need a dedicated spare drive like you do on traditional RAID. And then, of course, that is all mixed. So what happens here is when a disk fails, all that data is able to be rebuilt on spare capacity, significantly increasing rebuild time. So we don't see that disruption. We can also stand two drive failures, right? So this is really interesting and helps us modernize, the footprint of technology as we move forward. Now, in addition to, this is PowerStore X. We do have two models, PowerStore T and PowerStore X. PowerStore X, right, is still that PowerStore platform, And because we have containerized OS, we now can also have VMware running on storage, right? So we have two nodes in the back, node 1, node 2, and this containerization architecture allows us to, have a VMware environment and leverage the underlying disk in that, right? So if you here, the use case might be edge services, right? In an edge environment where we have a small amount of VMs, we need some storage. We don't want to go out and buy 3 or 4 nodes of server hardware. So this could technically be a good use case for that, where all your VMware or VMs can run on this platform as well. Now there's 2 nodes, so of course, what I want to make sure everyone's aware of that if it is, a VMware environment, so we definitely want to make sure that the memory and compute, is sized correctly, which we can take offline. And if that ever comes about, we can have that conversation about how to size that. Now, with any platform, we want to be able to do some, really good analysis and become proactive. Now, Cloud IQ is it's free for one, right? Dell provides it. It's a cloud-based service that is for Dell, our application, and it provides us some predictive analytics. Right, there's actual AI and ML built into the platform, and if you can see that graphic, it does supply us some badges, so we can see health right away, and get some also predictive analysis on how storage is doing. We can look at understanding when do we need more storage, right? When do we need to add? It also has a remote or an app for your cell phone. So, if you want to sit on the beach and look at your storage, you can.
I just want to add that Cloud IQ is actually available for other products too. So.
Yes, great.
Meaning is vendor agnostic?
No, currently it's just our products. I just put a link actually into the simulator, so I think we actually don't talk about this enough. That it does provide a lot of value, and as Des mentioned, it is free. So it covers our servers, some of our networking equipment.
Oh, I see.
And there is discussion about putting some of our competitor infrastructure in there too. But so I put a link in, and if you have a Dell account, you can log in or create an account and play around with it and just have a look and see what the value it provides. So, sorry, Des.
Yeah, we see the line. We see the link in the chat. That's for sure. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate that. Yeah, jump in anytime if I missed something. That is a great point. That this is used for all our products. And as Mark alluded to, we're looking to having that extend out to our friends and other vendors. So look forward to seeing that happen. Excuse me. Okay, I'll continue on. I'll try to continue on. It's not moving. There we go. Did you see the move? Oops.
You do have it moving. Yes, your slide 31. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so PowerStore was released in 2020, and then in 2022 last year we announced PowerStore 3.0, and now we're going to go through some of those updates. But before we do, there's also Gen 2 platform that was released with that. So that's Gen 2 hardware that was released as well. That doesn't mean that if we do have any PowerStore customers today that are on Gen 1, it doesn't mean that that's obsolete by no means. That Gen 1 hardware we're still selling today. There's no end of sale, so it will be around for a lot longer. Okay. Now, when we think about innovation, and I mentioned that last year there was updates being done and being pushed. Well, the latest from last year was 120 new features, and this is a example of having containerized architecture that helps us, be able to push features out. Now, we're not going to go through 120 features within the slide deck. We would need a number of hours. So, there's a few slides here that are probably the most important ones. Sorry, bear with me. I thought I took this all out of here. So this just shows you that the capability boost from Gen 1 to Gen 2, right? We do have a lot more performance, and then from OS 2 version to OS 3, we're able to advance the amount of actual max capacity there. So we've had the ability to grow and the storage capabilities in a great deal. Now, Gen 1, just so everyone's aware, when we first launched it, the controller or Node 1, Node 2 had all NVMe disks on the front. But if we wanted to add a shelf when it was released, those were connected with SAS. And now with the latest release, we're able to do NVMe throughout the entire stack. And that was because we're able to add a 100 gig connection in order to connect additional shelves at 100 gig speed, to leverage the speed of NVMe through the entire stack. So that was added as well. From the network side, NVMe networks. Now I know it's relatively new. There's maybe not too many people out there changing networks to NVMe over TCP, but that is a capability there that's been released, as well as via vVols over NVMe. And for those of you that vVols is from a VMware side. I'm not too sure if anyone is using those today, but we do have a number of clients that are leveraging vVols over a standard network. Oh, I forgot to mention. And then I moved forward too quickly, pardon me. Smart Fabric storage services. So if anyone's familiar with Fiber Channel and SAN Fabric Manager, we have to be able to zone in environment. That's what storage fabric services are for NVMe. Right, it helps us manage and monitor and build zones for NVMe networks, which is supplied through Dell as well.
And Des, maybe you want to highlight a couple of benefits at a high level of what those feature like vVol and NVMe. I'm sure it's faster, but is there other benefits for our customers of those functionalities?
I would say absolutely. So, and it all depends on the architecture and the way we solution any environments. But of course, we look at NVMe over TCP and 100 gig. Yeah, there's going to be a tremendous amount of performance from the network. So we're not going to see any bottlenecks within that network layer, right? And then when we move to vVols, there is some benefit, right? So vVols, as we use vVols, it is directly directly deployed on back-end storage. So if we have, I'm sure there's many VMware customers out here, and you've heard the term data stores, and we need to mount a data store into a host in order for VMs to sit on. Well, that concept kind of goes away, where the ESX host or vSphere host actually has direct access to a storage, like PowerStore here. And then what happens is VMs are deployed directly on that storage, and it takes some of the management away from operational folks that need to worry about how many data stores they need and sizing. And then what happens is vVols will take advantage of the backend storage capabilities, right? So it's been around for many years. I think there's, not too many, I won't say not too many, but there are a few people leveraging it just for that functionality, where we're not bound by any number of, say, 5 terabyte LUNs or 10 terabyte LUNs. It takes that kind of concept away and lets us just use the storage directly. Did that answer the question?
Makes sense. Thank you, Des.
Yep. Now, I threw this in here, I think we were just talking about NVMe, but just from a cost perspective, when we start looking at costs from a connection, and sometimes we don't think about this, so I just kind of threw this in here just to quickly talk about when we start having, larger network connections and bandwidth. Well, the number of ports can also reduce, right? So that helps drive down costs overall. So if we have many environments that are on still 10 gig today, there could be an advantage going up to 25, 40, or 100 gig networks, right? And taking some advantage of cost reductions in other areas that we may not really necessarily think about at times. So I threw that in there just for a quick highlight, just to, put that in everyone's mind when we consider automation or consider transforming and modernizing. Now, continuing on the 3.0 release, when we talked about mobility, we want to be able to obviously import data. So we do have some native block, but in 3.0 release, we've added a bunch more functionality, able to do better seamless imports of data from block and file. And we also included an application called Datadobe. Datadobe is a third-party tool that we will include with the purchase, and that helps with file-related migrations. From a replication standpoint, we added file sync. I have many customers that were relying on that, and they're now leveraging that, so they're very happy about that. And of course, Vvault asynchronous. And then the new capability from Metro replication is native. When native, what I mean is built onto the box is block sync Metro, right? So if we want to do an active environment, and this helps us build out a active environment for VMware. I'm not too sure if anyone's had a chance to look at stretch clustering yet, but if you did have a initiative to do an active environment where we need the applications to be 100% up and be able to move between the two data centers, that capability exists within the platform, right? Now, in addition from the file services part, on the new platform or new version of OS, there's file locking capabilities. So if there is some compliancy requirements, that feature now exists. And from a file monitoring perspective, like for ransomware, other third-party applications, that's where this ties in, and we have that ability now as well. We already talked about replication, so I won't get too further into that. And on the performance side, we did chat a bit about the NVMe over TCP. But on generation 1, just so everyone's aware, we weren't able to use all the Ethernet ports on the back, but that's now been removed. We can use any Ethernet port for file data going forward. And then we have a lot more integration with VMware, our friends at VMware, close partners with them. So our integration with that still continues today. No, oops. I'll just build this out so we can. I think we're.
And Des, you're doing well on time. You've got about 5 minutes left.
Perfect.
Before we go to the question.
Yeah. Okay, so just talking about VMware a little bit more. With this latest release, we do have a bit more visibility between PowerStore Manager and vSphere, right? So kind of just helps us be able to augment and align VMware to PowerStore, and operational staff can quickly identify, those VMs and where they're located. In addition, creating data stores, a lot of the functionality that a lot of us are used to is now within the platform, which we're really excited about. And we've kind of already talked about the other replication and methods that have been released, so I won't touch too much on that. Kind of continue on, and all right. So
security, the topic of the hour.
Yeah, absolutely. And is it just to check again? Everyone can see the slides moving.
Yes. Yeah, we're talking about NIST here.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. Yeah, absolutely. Security is top of mind for any organization. And with transformation, we can't forget about protection, right? And what that brings, be able to protect that data. So, we did touch on ransomware, file locking. The platform is now end-to-end FIPS 140-2 compliant. You know, from an anti-theft protection perspective, our data at rest encryption can now leverage an external key manager, right? So adding another protection of security. And then from a supply chain, you can see hardware rooted trust, and that's what that stands for, hardware rooted trust. Well, this technology isn't new. It's been on our server platforms for many years. It helps eliminate anybody tampering with the actual physical hardware, right? So we've been able to accommodate that within this platform and more of our storage platforms going forward. We're going to be able to leverage this service, which is really good for, you know, being able to make sure firmware is signed correctly, and we won't have any issue. And of course, secure import. We can do secure import of chaps and HTTP and IPsec. Now, I haven't talked about models yet, and I do have a slide up here next that kind of does show the models. And we start with the PowerStore 500 as Gen 1. Well, I just wanted to inform everybody, Gen 1 PowerStore 500, we weren't able to add shelves to that, right? So as 3.0 is released, we're able now to add shelves within that 500 and scale up. So the 500 is a starting point. You know, it's a pretty fair size box that does have a lot of performance built into it. Which we can kind of talk about offline and go through the different models. But that scalability now does exist when we start looking at, maybe we want to start a little small, right? And then grow into a cluster if we need to. You have that ability. Now, speaking of, you know, the nodes and the different types from Gen 1 to Gen 2. So our Generation 1 started at, you know, the 1,000, 3,000, 5,000, 7,000, 9,000. That was the model numbers, right? So all the different t-shirt sizes. Of course, each one had a bit of different compute and memory, right? And a bit quicker. So, you know, again, this is up for more of a sizing exercise of when we understand what model do we need to choose. You know, the Dell team, like myself and Mark, we're here to help, you know, all you folks to be able to size things correctly and make sure you get the right one. So as we, move forward into second generation, you can see that the second number is a 2, right? That helps identify what generation we're in. So as new generations come out, that number will change, and you'll be able to quickly identify that generation. You'll also see a gap in that 7,000 doesn't exist. So, you know, if we're looking at anytime upgrade customers and we don't have that model, well, you do get a free upgrade to the larger one, right? So that's something to think about with the anytime upgrade option and some of the advantages that goes along with that. So, and the reason why we didn't maintain the 7200 is really because from the 7200 to 9200, the underlying hardware is almost exactly the same. So it didn't make sense to have those two in place. All right, I got a couple slides left, right? And of course, you know, we have to talk about cloud and what do we think about and how we're going to start moving data into cloud. And I'm not too sure if anyone out there on the line has heard about Project Alpine. Project Alpine was released or was announced last year. So it's really, at the end of the day, it is Dell taking, you know, our OS and making it available in the cloud, right? So we do have one platform already available. It's PowerFlex, and that has the ability to run that software directly in cloud. And that might be for another session one day, but that's kind of the direction we're going. So look forward to, you know, seeing more about this as we move forward this year in that announcement. So we should be seeing, you know, PowerStore and other platforms directly in the cloud, be able to sync up everything and you know, do a nice disaster recovery or, you know, do more business continuity with that in the future. And then we're on the last slide here, and just, you know, summary, kind of what the things we talked about today. You know, workload performance, you know, innovation. I think that's key. You know, when we're looking at modernizing and transforming our businesses, how do we do it, right? And that's the big question, and that's what we're here to help answer. All right. I think I'll give it back to you, Sylvain.
Yeah, this was certainly informative, and if it was a little bit technical in certain areas, you've got the Microserve team and the Dell team to help out, clarifying some of those technical component of the conversation we just had. So we're just going to open it up to some questions from any members of the customer community here. That'd be awesome if we could get a little bit of interactions or feedback on the content you just reviewed. Oh yeah, your lunch voucher is going to come in after the event, and we're posting some feedback form in the chat, so you can give us some feedback on the sessions. There was a question that actually came to me via email. You talked about anytime upgrade. I think I actually heard you talk about that. What's the is there a Canadian component to this? Is this available in Canada, or should there be country considerations around this service?
It is available in Canada.
Okay.
And we can, it is available in Canada. It's really something we want to discuss at early stages, and okay. that feature or capability goes with the contract. So okay. We want to talk. So what we can do is as long as if you want to add it into the solution, we can do that, and then anytime after 180 days. You can actually call us and we can update that PowerStore to a better or bigger box. I'll give you an example. Let's say we started with a PowerStore 500, and okay. We did sizing. We put that in the data center on the floor. We put all our applications on there, and then we start having performance challenges or a challenge with that. Well, we can leverage anytime upgrade as long as we've enrolled in this feature to change that out to say a 1200 or maybe a 3200. It gives you that ability. It also helps with understanding upfront costs, right? So if you do choose to enroll, that helps us with budgeting and reducing the need for a PO 3 or 5 years later type thing as well, because you have that benefit.
I see. Thank you.
Mark, do you want to add anything else into that, or?
No, I think you pretty much covered it.
Another question that came up here in the section that you talked about, optimize, analyze, and automate. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the software that's all included in these functions, or provide a little bit more details around that?
Sure. From the software side, from our previous generations and other technology, you'd always probably see separate data rest encryption functionality, power path, right? Multipathing. What else am I missing? Pardon me, my mind's going blank. But there's a number of different software packages.
I think local replication, remote replication. If you're two storage arrays, that's yes. All included.
Correct. So now we're taking that, on the new platform and just having it one inclusive package where we don't have to worry about different pieces of software going forward. Right. So I've had this happen in the past with some customers where we had, say, a basic software package versus a pro software package, and we went with the basic package, and then of course after deployment, as Mark suggested, that we needed to be able to replicate. And if you just have the wrong package, then of course we're not able to replicate without that license. So we're taking all the guesswork away. And trying to make sure we optimize and modernize going forward.
Makes sense. I hope that answered the question to the customer that asked. Any further questions from the customers?
Hi, everybody. This is Rob from Dell. I'm just going to say thank you so much for your time and attention today. This has been brilliant. Thank you, Microserve, for being our host of the event. And as always, if you need any assistance from Dell and Microserve, please reach out to your Microserve sales teams, and they will connect with Dell and make sure that we are there to assist you.
Yeah, it's a great partnership, Rob. Our business has been growing together with the support of our customers and delivering value every day. All right. Well, if there's no further questions, we'll give you 5 minutes back to your calendars. Watch for the survey request into the chat, and I'd like to wish you a great rest of your week.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy.
Thanks, Dean does.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.